Hey guys, welcome back to the Carla and Crappy Show. It is week 7 of the season, week 2 of us being mildly distracted by playoff baseball. I of course, am in Pittsburgh, and I'm watching the Pirates. Carla is in Nashville, and
And
you just saw
also,
her look up at the TV right there. You
yes,
just saw it.
yes, I'm also watching the Pirates. Yes, I listened to the Pirates on my way home from church, and now I'm watching the
Uh
Pirates.
huh.
And yeah,
Uh huh.
yeah. So we're both gonna get caught quite a bit, I
Um,
think.
yeah, this is either going to be the quickest Carla and Crappy episode ever, or the one where we can't finish sentences because we keep looking up at the TV. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's going to go. Um, we're going to jump right into our 4 matchups this weekend. We have some good ones, at least that would be on paper. Normally, you would look at a matchup of Oklahoma and Texas and think the Red River rivalry and huge rivalry game and national implications, and perhaps that's not the case this year. Carla, I'm interested in both your prediction for this game and what you think might happen to Texas coach Mac Brown should this be a loss, particularly an ugly one, to the Sooners. What do you think?
Right. And an ugly loss is not out of the question,
Yeah.
especially after last year. That was I looked up the score because I couldn't remember, but I knew it was bad. It was 63-21 last year. Um, Now, it's interesting. Oklahoma's offense isn't the Oklahoma offense of last year.
True.
They won last week against TCU, and the score was a little bit deceiving because TCU scored a late touchdown. But in that game, they only had 355 total yards of offense.
Yeah.
So it's not a prolific offense. It's a good offense, but it's not prolific, which means that Texas might have an itty-bitty chance of staying in this game. But the Texas defense has been maligned all season. It's been kind of the linchpin in all of this whole issue with Texas in general. Yeah, you're talking about Mac Brown. If this ends up being another 20-point loss, 21-point loss, something like that, if Texas is out of it by halftime like they have been the last 2 years, yeah, I think Texas makes the move.
Okay.
This week. I was watching the Texas Iowa State game last Thursday, and watching that score very, very closely, thinking to myself, what happens tomorrow if Texas wins this game, or if Iowa State wins this game.
Right.
And somehow miraculously they pulled it off, and but I don't think Texas, now that we know that Dodds is really retiring, even though it was reported a couple weeks ago by Orange Bloods that he was retiring, and that no, he's not. Yes, he is. He's retiring, or retiring, depending on, I don't know. I don't know the whole deal, but yeah, I would say the move probably comes pretty quickly. And I do think Oklahoma wins this game big. Maybe Texas hangs until halftime. That would be good for Mac Brown's future if they hang until halftime. But if it's a blowout by the end of the first quarter, I think we're all going to be talking about Texas on Sunday.
In some respects, it may be unavoidable. I mean, you mentioned last week, and that's really a no-win situation. The fact that Texas has to come up with a squeaker at the end to beat Iowa State.
Yeah.
It's a win, but it's not a win that's going to make anybody in Austin happy. I see the same thing that you do here. I think Oklahoma wins this and could potentially win this in a big, ugly fashion. And if that's the case, boy, with the stuff that the Longhorns have been through so far this season, you hate to see the stuff get so bad that the coach has to change in the middle of the season. But I think with a big Oklahoma win, Texas will have a new head coach on Monday morning when the kids come back to practice. So we'll see how that one goes. Next up, we have Florida at LSU. About how dreadful some of the marquee SEC matchups have been, and then the SEC turns around this year and has so far at least turned us into liars. They're actually scoring points and putting out some entertaining football games. This one, I'm not sure that's going to follow what the SEC has been doing this year. This has potential to be kind of a slog fest that we've come to know and love from our favorite conference down there. How do you see this one going?
This one kind of boils down, I think, to one key matchup, and I know, yes, it's offenses versus defenses, but the key matchup here is LSU's offense versus the Florida defense. Florida defense is one of the best in the country on paper, and this is going to be a real, true test for them. They put up good defensive numbers against Miami. I think special teams ended up being the difference in that game. And the LSU offense is, for an LSU team, is remarkably good. You don't think of LSU being the prolific scoring team. They are
LSU is largely responsible for some of the most miserable games in the last couple of years in the SEC.
That's definitely true, and that's not the case this year. I mean, they definitely are capable of putting up points. So that's gonna be a really interesting matchup. If this game was at the Swamp, I think it would probably be a duke 'em out affair, and it would probably come down to the team that had the ball last. To be perfectly honest. But you caught that. Sorry. Baseball.
I wasn't looking. No.
Okay. So anyhow, if this was the Swamp, I think I think it would be last possession wins the game. The fact that this is at LSU, and the fact that this is going to be the first time that Tyler Murphy's really kind of seen something anywhere close to this atmosphere. I think LSU wins this game, and I think it's probably by more than one score. But I don't see it being a blowout. But I definitely think it's going to be, maybe an 8 or 9 point margin, and I think LSU wins.
Okay. I was looking at the same thing. Actually, I looked up the numbers. Florida's the offense that Florida fans have been used to seeing over the last decade definitely does not exist. The defense, however, Florida's fourth in the country in scoring defense. They're going up against an LSU team that scores 45 points a game. So that you nailed the key matchup right here. I think for that reason, this has the potential to be more like the SEC games that we've come to know and hate over the last couple seasons. Kind of low scoring. I might even say this is going to be a little bit tighter than what you predicted, but I'm going to agree that at home LSU beats the Gators. Next up, we have our Big Ten matchup of the week. That is Northwestern at Wisconsin. Last week, when I prior to the Ohio State Northwestern game, I kept telling people that I work with, I'm worried about this game. I'm worried about playing at Northwestern, and everyone kind of looked at me funny. And if you got to see that game on Saturday night, you now know why. How do you see this one going?
You know how last week you were kind of on the fence between Stanford and Washington?
Right.
And just ready to flip a coin? That's kind of where I'm at this game.
Okay.
Because, you look at the records, Wisconsin's not ranked. Northwestern coming off of that loss. The game is in Madison. So you go back and forth on this. I mean, Northwestern looked good last week against it. I mean, and you obviously watched that game from start to finish. They hung right with them the entire game. And had a lead up until 10 minutes left to play. Something like that. Yeah. I mean, it was in the fourth quarter. They had a lead in the fourth quarter. Enough to make that stadium go nuts, which was gotta love that atmosphere. That was fun.
Absolutely.
But Wisconsin loves the power run game. That's Wisconsin football. And that was the one thing that Northwestern kind of struggled with.
Yes.
Was that whole run game of Ohio State. That would be the one thing so that leans me a little bit Wisconsin. The other thing that leans me a little bit Wisconsin is just on a fluke, I looked, and they had the potential forecast for Saturday, and they're calling for rain. And if that's the case, if it rains, I think Wisconsin wins the game because they have the power run game, and that's not the Northwestern offense. And we saw they struggled against that. I think Wisconsin wins. If it's a fast track and everything's fine, I still think Northwestern is the second best team in the Big Ten right now. And I think they win. So
far, you've picked two teams here.
I know.
We can come back to this if you want. That'd be okay.
Rain, Wisconsin. If it rains, I go Wisconsin. If it doesn't rain, I go Northwestern. How's that for pick? It's almost as good as your Washington pick last week.
But I did eventually pick. Incorrectly. Pick the Huskies to win that game.
Okay, on paper, Northwestern's the better team. Northwestern.
Okay. Okay, that's fair enough. I'm picking Northwestern regardless of what the weather does. Their defensive weakness that they have is the same one that won Ohio State the game last weekend. Wisconsin did not, or Northwestern did not have a solution for Carlos Hyde. And obviously, Wisconsin history, they run the football. It's what they do. That is not, however, a typical Wisconsin defense. And I think Ohio State is going to struggle. Catch at the wall. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think Wisconsin's defense could have this kind of the similar problems that Ohio State's defense had. As my season goes on, I'm becoming more and more aware that Ohio State's pass defense is a bit rough. But I think, and Wisconsin's offense is unlike any other team in the conference, and that's like trying to play Army or Air Force in the old days when you have one option team on your schedule, and it's just a royal pain in the butt to have to prepare for them. I see Northwestern winning this game. Camp Randall is legit home field advantage, and maybe if the weather is awful, the Badgers can parlay that into a grinded out kind of thing. But I think the Wildcats win this one. I was really impressed with them last week. I think they are legitimately the second best team in the Big Ten at the moment. We wrap up on the West Coast. Game day is going to Seattle for Oregon and Washington, so I thought that was a good one for us to pick. Oregon is a 13.5-point favorite for this game on the road in another place that is a legit home field advantage. Carla, what do you see with this one?
Yeah, ask Boise about that home field advantage.
Right.
That brand new facility, and they won that game pretty handily at home. Oregon really, I went back and looked at their schedule. I mean, they haven't been in a close game all year. They just haven't. They've been blowing everybody out. The offense still looks
and haven't really played anybody yet this year. Tennessee.
No, they haven't.
Tennessee's not bad, but
Tennessee,
no.
Virginia, but and a couple cupcakes. So this really is Oregon's first true test. This is a gauntlet for Washington. I mean, to play Stanford and Oregon in back-to-back weeks, and
right.
I'm so sorry, Huskies. I mean, that's a terrible draw on the schedule. But I think it does give them some confidence heading into this game. They hung with Stanford last week, I would think that would give them some confidence. It'll be interesting to see which defense decides to show up. Because both of these teams really do have pretty good defenses that nobody ever talks about. So you want to say, in theory, you're looking at both these offenses, you're like, oh, right, first team to 50 wins this game, which seems to have been the case a couple times in Pac-12 this year. But
yes.
But I really think whichever defense decides to actually kind of say it's time for us to get some headlines, that's the team who's going to win this game. Oregon's been there. They've got the experience. I like Oregon winning this, but I think Washington hangs.
Okay. I will start with a mea culpa. I really thought Oregon was going to have difficulties with coaching change, and I was completely wrong about that. Currently, they're number 2 in scoring offense and number 2 in scoring defense in the nation so far. Now, as we both pointed out, they haven't played anybody yet. So you look at those numbers with sort of a skeptical eye. This is a test for them. But I see them winning this. I would love to see a tight game here, and I think it could be. You don't really know how a team is going to react on the road when they for the first time. Certainly I saw this with the way Ohio State played for the first half of the game at Northwestern a week ago. If that if something like that happens, Seattle's a rough place for a visiting team, and maybe the Huskies can turn that around and turn it into something in their favor. But as I look at this, I think the Ducks. I think that the Ducks are going to come away with a win in that game, and then we'll see how the rest of their season goes. They have a couple more tests back in the conference before we start talking about bowl games and national championships and stuff.
Yeah.
Pirates are hitting. Still down 2-0 in the sixth. Any predictions for them?
Gosh, I would love to see this. They gotta get a run soon. They need one run soon to get a Game 4 kind of atmosphere going. But Wainwright's looking good tonight. Yes,
he is. And Garrett Cole's not looking bad. But this may be a situation where 2 runs, that 2 runs looks a lot bigger than 2 runs, at least at the moment. We will see how that goes, and we will see how our 4 games go this weekend, and we will be back with you guys next week. Carla, thank you.
Thank you as always. Go Bucks. I hope. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks. Go Nits. Beat Blue. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Please. Yeah, we didn't talk about my Nits. Yeah, no, it's not good.
I'm solidly on your side this weekend. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you again next week. Bye now.
Bye. Because I listened to their podcast last night. Oh, come on.
Run into each other. Damn it.
I would have tied it up. Damn it. That's making me outtakes.